The merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer drifted through the empty space of the sector. Captain sat in his command chair, his four eyes scanning the darkness beyond the viewing screen. His blue scales reflected the soft glow of the ship's interior lights. Around him, his crew of 12 worked quietly at their stations. They were a peaceful trading species known throughout the galaxy for their excellent navigation skills and their complete lack of interest in violence. Had been traveling these trade routes for 40 standard years. He had seen many strange things in that time. He had witnessed the great nebula storms of Sector 7. He had watched the birth of a new star from a safe distance. He had traded goods with over 300 different species across 6 different galactic arms, but nothing in his long career had prepared him for what his sensors would detect on this particular morning. His navigator, a young female named N, suddenly made a sound of confusion. Her slender fingers moved quickly across her console, checking and rechecking the readings that appeared on her screen. Her tail, which usually hung relaxed behind her chair, began to twitch with nervous energy. "Captain," she said, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty, "I am detecting something strange on the long-range sensors." Leaned forward in his chair. Strange readings were not unusual in deep space. There were countless natural phenomena that could confuse ship sensors. Radiation bursts from dying stars, gravitational waves from collapsing systems, or simply debris fields from ancient collisions could all create unusual readings. He expected this to be something simple. "What do you see in?" he asked calmly. "A ship, Captain. At least, I believe it is a ship. The sensor profile is unlike anything in our database. It is approximately 47,000 kilometers away, traveling on a parallel course to our own." The communications officer, an older male named X, turned from his station. His expression showed the same confusion that was beginning to feel. "Shall I attempt to make contact, Captain? Perhaps they are lost travelers in need of assistance." This was the way. They believed in helping those they encountered in the void of space. The galaxy was vast and lonely, and kindness between travelers was considered sacred. Nodded his agreement. What harm could come from a simple greeting? "Open a channel," he ordered. "Standard greeting protocol." X activated the communication system and began transmitting. His message was simple and friendly, offering greetings and assistance if needed. They waited for a response. Minutes passed. The unknown ship continued on its course, silent and mysterious. "No response, Captain," X reported. "They may not have compatible communication equipment, or perhaps they simply do not wish to speak with us." Stroked the ridge of scales beneath his chin, a gesture of deep thought among his people. His curiosity was growing stronger. In all his years of travel, he had never encountered a ship that could not be identified by standard sensors. Every species in the known galaxy had registered their vessel designs with the Universal Trade Council. This was required for all ships traveling through shared space lanes. It was a matter of safety and cooperation. "Increase sensor power," he commanded. "I want a full profile of that vessel. What species built it? What class is it? What is it doing in this sector?" N worked her console with renewed focus. The ship's sensors reached out across the void, gathering information about the mysterious vessel. The data that returned made her freeze in her seat. Her tail stopped twitching completely. For a long moment, she simply stared at her screen, as if unable to believe what she was seeing. "Captain," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Report, navigator, what have you found?" N turned to face him. Her eyes were wide with something that had never seen in a fellow before. It took him a moment to recognize the emotion. It was fear. Pure, primal fear. "The vessel is registered as the Iron Will," she said slowly. "It is a Class 3 vessel, military designation, assault cruiser. According to the database, it is equipped with 48 plasma cannons, 12 torpedo tubes, and advanced shielding technology capable of withstanding direct hits from orbital defense platforms." X made a sound of disbelief. A vessel, out here. Those ships are supposed to operate only within restricted military zones. What is it doing in a civilian trade sector? Felt his heart begin to beat faster. He had heard stories about vessels. Everyone in the galaxy had. They were the subject of countless warnings and frightening tales told to young spacers. Vessels were ships designed by species that evolved on planets classified as Category 3 or higher on the Galactic Habitability Index. These were worlds where the environment itself was hostile to most forms of life. Planets with extreme gravity, toxic atmospheres, dangerous wildlife, or unstable weather systems. The species that survived on such worlds were always dangerous. They had to be dangerous simply to exist. What species built this ship? Asked, though part of him did not want to know the answer. N looked back at her console. When she spoke again, her voice trembled slightly. The vessel is of Terran construction. The crew manifest, according to the registration data, shows a complement of 450 personnel. All of them are humans. A heavy silence fell over the bridge of the Stellar Wanderer. Every member of the crew knew about humans. Every species in the galaxy knew about humans. They were the galaxy's most famous paradox. A species that could be incredibly kind and generous one moment, then terrifyingly violent the next. They came from Earth, a planet that the Galactic Survey Team had classified as a Class 3 when they first discovered it. The survey team had been shocked to find intelligent life on such a hostile world. They had been even more shocked to find that the intelligent life had not only survived there, but had actually thrived and built a complex civilization. Earth was a planet where the majority of the surface was covered in a substance that was toxic to drink. The atmosphere contained a gas that could cause metal to slowly decay and crumble. The planet was home to millions of species, many of which evolved specifically to kill and consume other species. There were tiny creatures invisible to the naked eye that could invade a body and destroy it from within. There were massive predators with teeth and claws that could tear through armored plating. There were plants that produced poisons capable of stopping hearts in seconds. And somehow, impossibly, humans had survived all of this. But surviving was not enough for humans. They had conquered there. They had built cities on every continent, including the frozen wastelands at the poles. They had tamed many of the dangerous creatures and turned them into companions. They had developed medicines to fight the invisible killers and weapons to defend against the visible ones. When they finally reached the stars, they brought all of that survival instinct with them. They cannot be hostile, X said hopefully. Humans are members of the Universal Trade Council. They signed the peace accords like everyone else. Perhaps they are simply on patrol, keeping the trade lanes safe. Wanted to believe this. He truly did. Humans had indeed signed the peace accords. They were active traders, skilled engineers, and dedicated explorers. Many species had positive relationships with human colonies and businesses, but everyone also knew the other side of humanity. They knew about the wars humans had fought among themselves before they reached space. They knew about the weapons humans had developed, weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They knew that when humans were threatened, they responded with a ferocity that shocked even the most warlike species in the galaxy. Continue monitoring them, ordered, but do not make any sudden moves. Change nothing about our course or speed. We do not want to appear threatening. The Stellar Wanderer continued its journey through space, its crew watching the distant human vessel with growing unease. For several hours, nothing happened. The Iron Will maintained its parallel course, never moving closer, never moving away. It was as if the humans were studying them, judging them, deciding what to do. Then, without warning, the human ship changed course. It began moving toward the Stellar Wanderer. N's voice was high with panic. Captain, the Iron Will is approaching. Current speed indicates intercept in approximately 12 minutes. Gripped the arms of his command chair. His mind raced through possible options. The Stellar Wanderer was a merchant vessel. It had no weapons worth mentioning. Its shields were designed to protect against space debris, not military plasma cannons. If the humans intended to attack, there was absolutely nothing he could do to stop them. "Maintain calm," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We have done nothing wrong. We have no contraband. We are simple traders on a legal route. Perhaps they simply wish to inspect us. This is permitted under galactic law." His words sounded hollow even to his own ears. He had heard stories of ships that disappeared in the void, ships that simply stopped transmitting and were never seen again. Some of those stories mentioned humans. Not many, but enough to make him nervous. The iron will grew larger on their viewing screen with each passing minute. It was a massive vessel, at least 5 times the size of the Stellar Wanderer. Its hull was painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Could see the outlines of weapon systems along its sides, each one capable of reducing his ship to scattered atoms. He noticed strange markings on the hull, symbols and words in the human language that he could not read. "They are hailing us," X announced. Straightened in his chair and tried to compose himself. "Put them on screen." The viewing screen flickered, and suddenly a human face appeared before them. It was a female, noted, though he had always found it difficult to tell with humans. Their species had such subtle differences between genders. She had dark hair cut short close to her skull and eyes the color of deep space. She wore a uniform of some kind, dark and practical, with symbols of rank on the shoulders. Behind her, he could see other humans moving about, working at various stations in what appeared to be a well-organized command center. The human female spoke, and though her mouth moved, a translation device rendered her words into standard galactic common. Her voice was calm and professional, but there was an undertone of authority that made scales prickle with unease. "Unknown merchant vessel, this is Captain Sarah of the Terran assault cruiser Iron Will. You have entered a restricted zone. Please identify yourself and state your business in this sector." Blinked in surprise. A restricted zone. There had been no warnings about this sector being restricted. The Stellar Wanderer had traveled this route many times before without incident. Something had changed, and he had not been informed. "This is captain of the merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer," he replied carefully. "We are traveling from the system to the trading hub at Station 12. We were not aware that this sector had been restricted. We apologize for any intrusion and ask permission to continue on our way." Captain studied him through the screen. Her expression revealed nothing. Humans were difficult to read, had always thought. Their faces could show so many emotions, but they could also hide them completely when they chose to. "Hold your position," she said finally. "We will be sending an inspection team to your vessel. Prepare to receive them. Do not resist or attempt to flee. We will explain the situation once our personnel are aboard." The communication ended before could respond. He looked at his crew, seeing his own worry reflected in their faces. An inspection team. Humans would be coming aboard his ship. Actual humans in the flesh, walking through his corridors and examining his cargo. "What do we do, Captain?" and asked quietly. Took a deep breath. "We do exactly as they say. We cooperate fully. We show them that we are no threat. And we hope that whatever they are looking for, they do not find it on our ship." The crew began preparing for the arrival of the human inspection team. None of them knew that this day would change everything they believed about the galaxy. None of them understood that they were about to learn the true meaning of what it meant to face beings from and none of them could have predicted the incredible events that would unfold in the hours to come. The docking bay of the Stellar Wanderer felt smaller than usual as the airlock cycled open. Stood with his senior officers, waiting to greet the human inspection team. His hearts pounded beneath his scales, and he had to consciously prevent his tail from betraying his nervousness through its movements. Behind him, the rest of his crew had gathered in the corridor, curiosity and fear mixing on their faces in equal measure. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and the humans stepped through. There were 5 of them, 3 males and 2 females, all wearing the same dark uniforms as Captain. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost predatory, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. Notice that each of them carried equipment attached to their belts, devices that could have been anything from communication tools to weapons. He decided not to ask about them. The lead human was a tall male with skin the color of dark copper and closely trimmed black hair. He stepped forward and offered what recognized as a human greeting gesture, extending his right hand palm upward. "I am Lieutenant Commander," the human said through his translation device. "These are my team members. We appreciate your cooperation, Captain. This inspection should not take long." Accepted the greeting cautiously, pressing his own scaled palm briefly against the human's hand. The contact surprised him. Human skin was warm, much warmer than Scales. He could feel the slight roughness of it, the result of a species that had evolved to grip and climb and manipulate their dangerous environment. "We welcome you aboard the Stellar Wanderer," replied, following the formal protocols of greeting. "Please let us know how we can assist your inspection. We have nothing to hide and wish only to continue our journey peacefully." Lieutenant Commander nodded. His expression was difficult to interpret, but his body language seemed relaxed. This helped feel slightly less terrified. "We will need to examine your cargo hold," said. "We are searching for specific materials that have been illegally transported through this sector. We have no reason to believe you are involved, but we must check all vessels passing through the zone. Standard procedure." Gestured for one of his officers to lead the way to the cargo hold. As they walked through the corridors of the ship, he noticed that the humans seemed completely comfortable in their environment. They did not appear stressed by the confined spaces or the unfamiliar surroundings. Of course they were comfortable, he realized. They came from a planet where danger lurked everywhere. A simple merchant vessel must seem like the safest place in the universe to them. "May I ask what has caused this sector to be restricted?" ventured carefully. "We have traveled this route many times without encountering any military presence." Glanced at him, seeming to consider how much information to share. After a moment, he spoke. "There has been an incident at a colony in the nearby system of Prime. A group of raiders attacked the settlement 3 standard days ago. They killed 47 colonists and stole medical supplies, food stores, and technological equipment. We have been tasked with finding the raiders and recovering what was taken." Felt genuine shock at this news. Prime was a mixed-species colony, home to members of at least a dozen different races. Attacks on colonies were rare in this part of the galaxy. The peace accords had held for over a century, and most species had grown accustomed to safety in their settlements. "That is terrible news," he said sincerely. "Do you know who is responsible for this attack?" His expression changed subtly. There was something dark in his eyes now, something that made instincts scream warnings. "We have identified the raiders," said quietly. "They are a group calling themselves the Void Brothers, a criminal organization composed of members from multiple species. They have been operating in this region for approximately 2 years, attacking smaller ships and isolated outposts. The attack on Prime was their largest operation yet." They reached the cargo hold and opened the main doors. Inside were stacked containers of various trade goods, spices from the system, textiles from, electronic components manufactured at Station 9. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous. Just honest trade goods that would bring modest profits at Station 12. The human team spread out through the cargo hold, their scanning devices humming softly as they examined each container. They worked efficiently and professionally, disturbing nothing, treating the property with respect. Watched them with growing fascination. These were beings warriors from a species known for their capacity for violence, and yet they conducted themselves with discipline and courtesy. One of the female humans approached a container and frowned at her scanner. She called over, and they spoke quietly in their own language. Felt his heart skip beats. Had they found something wrong? Was there contraband hidden in his cargo without his knowledge? Such things had happened to other merchants, tricked by dishonest suppliers into carrying illegal goods. Turned to face him. Captain, this container is marked as containing medical supplies. Our scanner detects the presence of healing crystals. These are controlled substances under galactic regulation. Can you explain? Moved quickly to examine the container. His navigator, N, had followed them into the cargo hold, and she pulled up the manifest on her personal data device. Yes, Commander, explained. These are licensed medical supplies being transported to Station 12. The healing crystals are for the medical center there. We have proper authorization from the Galactic Health Commission. He gestured to N, who presented the documentation on her device. Examine the documents carefully. After a long moment, he nodded and returned the device. Everything appears to be in order. I apologize for the concern. With the stolen medical supplies from Prime, we must verify all such cargo. Relief washed through like warm water. I understand completely, Commander. We are happy to assist in any way we can. The inspection continued for another 30 minutes. The humans examined every corner of the cargo hold, then moved through other sections of the ship. They checked the engine room, the crew quarters, and even the galley where meals were prepared. Throughout it all, they remained professional and polite. Found himself relaxing somewhat. These humans were not the bloodthirsty warriors that the scary stories described. They were simply soldiers doing their duty. When the inspection was complete, the human team gathered near the airlock. Approached with something in his hand, a small device about the size of a communication unit. We found nothing illegal aboard your vessel, announced. You are free to continue your journey. However, I would ask you to accept this emergency beacon. If you encounter the Void Brothers or any suspicious vessels, activate it immediately. We will respond within minutes. Accepted the device gratefully. Thank you, Commander. I hope we do not need to use it, but I am grateful for the protection. Nodded, then seemed to hesitate. He glanced at his team members, then back at, Captain, may I speak with you privately for a moment? Surprised but curious, agreed. He led to a small observation room adjacent to the cargo hold. The window showed the vast emptiness of space, with the iron will visible in the distance, its massive hull dwarfing the stars behind it. What did you wish to discuss, Commander? Asked. Stood by the window, staring out at his ship. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than before, more personal. The attack on Prime. I was there, Captain. I arrived with the first response team. I saw what the Void Brothers did to those colonists. He paused and saw a muscle tighten in his jaw. There were children among the dead. 7 children, none older than 10 standard years. They were killed not because they resisted, but because the raiders found it amusing. Felt a chill run through his scales. He did not know how to respond to such horror. I tell you this, continued, because I want you to understand something. The galaxy has enjoyed peace for a long time. Many species have forgotten what violence truly looks like. They have forgotten what it means to face enemies who have no conscience, no mercy, no limits. Humans have not forgotten. We cannot forget. Violence is part of our history, part of our nature. We have worked hard to control it, to channel it into protecting others rather than harming them. But when we find the Void Brothers, and we will find them, they will learn what happens when you awaken the warrior spirit of a species. There was no threat in his words, no aggression. He spoke simply, stating facts as he understood them. And somehow, this calm certainty was more frightening than any display of anger could have been. Why are you telling me this? Asked quietly. Turned to face him. Because the Void Brothers have been using innocent merchants as cover. They have been hiding among trade ships, posing as crew members, waiting for opportunities to strike. We cannot search every ship in this sector, but we can ask honest captains like yourself to be watchful. If you see anything suspicious, anything at all, use that beacon. Do not try to handle the situation yourself. The Void brothers have already killed more than 300 beings across their 2 years of operation. They will not hesitate to add your crew to that number. Nodded slowly. I understand, Commander, I will be watchful. Offered his hand again and pressed his palm against it once more. The human's grip was firm but not painful, a gesture of mutual respect between two captains who understood the weight of responsibility. The human team returned to their shuttle and departed from the Stellar Wanderer, watched through the observation window as the small craft flew back toward the Iron Will. The massive warship hung in space like a sleeping predator, peaceful for now, but ready to spring into action at any moment. Captain N had entered the observation room. The humans have cleared us to proceed. Shall I set course for Station 12? Continued watching the Iron Will. Something about his conversation with Commander troubled him, though he could not identify exactly what it was. There was something the human had not said, some piece of information that had been left unspoken. Yes, he said finally. Resume our original course, but increase sensor sensitivity to maximum. I want to know about any vessel that comes within 100,000 kilometers of us. And hesitated. Do you believe we are in danger, Captain? I do not know, admitted. But I have learned something today. I have learned that the galaxy is not as safe as I believed it to be, and I have learned that when humans hunt for enemies, it is best to stay out of their way. The Stellar Wanderer resumed its journey, its engines pushing it steadily toward Station 12. Behind them, the Iron Will remained in position, watching, waiting. Did not know it then, but the human warship had been tracking something else entirely, something that had been following the Stellar Wanderer for days. Something that was now preparing to strike. 8 hours after leaving the restricted zone, N detected an anomaly on the sensors. It was small at first, barely noticeable among the background radiation of space, but as she focused the sensors on it, the anomaly grew clearer. It was a ship, running with minimal power to avoid detection, and it was directly in their path. Captain, she called out, her voice tight with renewed worry. I am detecting a vessel ahead of us. It appears to be deliberately masking its energy signature. Moved to her station and examined the readings himself. His experienced eyes picked out details that confirmed his worst fears. The ship ahead was not a merchant vessel. Its design was too angular, too aggressive, and its position was not random. It was waiting for them. How long until we reach them at current speed? He asked. Approximately 40 minutes, Captain. Reached into his pocket and pulled out the emergency beacon that Commander had given him. His thumb hovered over the activation button. One press, the human had said. One press and they would respond within minutes. But what if he was wrong? What if the ship ahead was simply another trader taking shelter behind an asteroid, trying to avoid pirates? What if he activated the beacon and brought a human warship racing toward innocent beings? Can you identify the vessel? He asked N. I am trying, Captain. Their masking technology is sophisticated. I cannot get a clear reading on their configuration. Made his decision, he pressed the button. The beacon sent its signal racing through space at faster-than-light speeds, carried on a dedicated channel that cut through all interference. Aboard the Iron Will, now thousands of kilometers away, an alarm suddenly sounded on the tactical station. Captain Sarah looked up from the report she had been reading. What do we have? Her tactical officer responded immediately. Emergency beacon activation, Captain. It is the merchant ship we inspected earlier, the Stellar Wanderer. They are approximately 47 minutes from an unidentified vessel at their current position. Stood from her chair. Her instincts, honed by years of service and countless encounters with danger, screamed that this was not a coincidence. Set intercept course, she ordered. Maximum speed, all hands to battle stations. The Iron Will turned its massive bulk with surprising grace and began accelerating toward the Stellar Wanderer. Its engines burned with furious energy, pushing the warship faster and faster through the void. Aboard the ship, 450 humans prepared for combat. Meanwhile, on the Stellar Wanderer watched the unknown vessel ahead. It had begun to move, emerging from its hiding place behind a small asteroid. And now, with the masking field dropped, he could finally see what it was. It was a raider ship. The symbol painted on its hull was unmistakable, a white skull surrounded by a ring of stars, the mark of the Void Brothers. "They are hailing us, Captain," X reported, his voice shaking. "On-screen," said, surprised by how calm his own voice sounded. The face that appeared was reptilian, belonging to a species that did not immediately recognize. The creature smiled, revealing rows of small, sharp teeth. "Greetings," it said in standard galactic common. "I lead the Void Brothers. You have something we want. Your cargo, your supplies, your ship. You can give them to us willingly and live, or you can resist and die. The choice is yours, but I suggest you choose quickly." Stared at the raider captain. Behind him, he could hear his crew members whimpering with fear. They were peaceful traders, not warriors. They had no weapons, no combat training, no way to defend themselves against armed raiders. But they had pressed the beacon, and help was coming. "We will not surrender," said, drawing himself up to his full height. "This vessel and its cargo are under the protection of the Terran military. You would be wise to withdraw while you still can." Laughed a harsh, grating sound. "The humans? You think I fear the humans? They are far away, little merchant. By the time they arrive, you will be dead, your cargo will be in my hold, and I will be long gone. Prepare to be boarded." The raider ship began moving toward them, its weapons charging with deadly intent. And somewhere in the distance, the iron will race through space, bringing with it the fury of a. The raider ship closed the distance with terrible speed, could see smaller craft launching from its docking bays, boarding vessels filled with armed raiders ready to storm his ship and take everything he had worked for. His crew gathered on the bridge, their faces pale with terror. None of them had ever faced combat. None of them had ever expected to face combat. They were merchants, travelers, peaceful beings who wanted nothing more than to trade goods and explore the galaxy. "Can we outrun them?" asked, already knowing the answer. In shook her head, her eyes fixed on her console. "No, Captain. Their ship is faster than ours, and the boarding craft will reach us in approximately 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That was all the time they had left. Looked at the emergency beacon in his hand. The small light on its surface blinked steadily, indicating that the signal had been sent. But how long would it take for the humans to arrive? The iron will have been thousands of kilometers away when they activated the beacon. Even at maximum speed, it would take time to reach them. "Everyone into the secure compartment," ordered. "Now, we cannot fight them, but we can make them work to find us." The secure compartment was a reinforced room in the center of the ship, designed to protect valuable cargo during emergencies. It had thick walls, a sealed atmosphere system, and enough supplies to sustain the crew for several days. It was not much, but it was something. The crew hurried to obey, filing through the corridors toward the compartment, remained on the bridge, watching the approaching raiders through the viewing screen. He would not abandon his ship until the very last moment. It was a matter of pride, and perhaps of foolish hope. The first boarding craft reached the Stellar Wanderer and attached itself to the hull near the cargo bay. Heard the grinding sound of cutting tools working through the outer plating. The raiders were making their own entrance, not bothering with the airlock. They did not care about damaging the ship they were stealing. Then something happened that did not expect. His sensor console lit up with a sudden cascade of alerts. Something was approaching at incredible speed. Something massive. Something that was broadcasting a signal that made his translator stutter as it struggled to convert the message into standard galactic common. "Attention Void Brothers vessel," the voice thundered through every speaker on the Stellar Wanderer. "This is Captain Sarah of the Terran assault cruiser Iron Will. You are engaged in piracy against a vessel under our protection. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This is your only warning." His face appeared on the viewing screen again. The raider captain no longer looked amused. His reptilian features were twisted with shock and something else, something that looked very much like fear. "Impossible," he hissed. "You cannot be here already. We calculated the response time. You should still be halfway across the sector." Captain's response was cold and hard as steel. "You calculated wrong. Withdraw now. You have 30 seconds." For a moment, thought the raiders might actually retreat. His expression showed the internal struggle, the calculation of odds, the assessment of risk versus reward. But then something hardened in the raider captain's eyes. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps it was desperation. Perhaps it was simply the madness that came from 2 years of successful raids, 2 years of never being caught, 2 years of believing he was untouchable. "All forces continue the operation," commanded. "Board the merchant vessel. The humans cannot fire on us without hitting their precious innocents. Take hostages. We will negotiate our way out of this." It was a reasonable strategy from a certain perspective. Many military forces in the galaxy had strict rules about protecting civilian lives. They would hesitate to fire on a ship that held hostages. They would negotiate, make deals, allow the raiders to escape in exchange for the safe release of the captives. But had made a critical error. He was thinking like a member of his own species. He was not thinking like a human. The Iron Will did not slow down as it approached. It did not take up a position and begin negotiations. Instead, it changed course slightly, putting itself between the raider ship and its escape route. Then it opened fire. Had never seen weapons like those used by the Terran warship. The plasma cannons were unlike anything in his experience. They fired in coordinated bursts, each shot precisely calculated to hit specific targets. The first volley struck the raider ship's engines, not destroying them but damaging them enough to prevent escape. The second volley targeted the weapon systems, slicing through armor plating as if it were nothing. "They are crippling the ship," N whispered in amazement, having returned to the bridge to witness what was happening. "They are not trying to destroy it. They are taking it apart piece by piece." She was right. The humans were not simply attacking. They were demonstrating their absolute superiority. Every shot landed exactly where it was intended. Every system that was disabled was chosen deliberately. The raiders were not being killed. They were being shown, in the most terrifying way possible, that they were completely at the mercy of beings who had mastered the art of war over thousands of years of bloody conflict. The boarding craft that had attached to the Stellar Wanderer suddenly detached and tried to flee back to its mother ship. Another burst from the Iron Will caught it in mid-flight, destroying its propulsion system and leaving it drifting helplessly in space. And then the humans boarded. A shuttle launched from the Iron Will at high speed. It crossed the distance between the ships in seconds and docked with the Stellar Wanderer through the same hole the raiders had cut. Heard sounds in the corridors below. Heavy footsteps, shouted commands, and then the distinctive sound of weapons fire. It lasted less than 3 minutes. When the silence fell, cautiously made his way down to the cargo bay. What he found there made his scales turn pale. Lieutenant Commander stood in the center of the room, surrounded by his team. At their feet lay a dozen raiders, all of them alive but restrained with some kind of binding material around their wrists and ankles. The raiders who had attempted to board the Stellar Wanderer had been captured with ruthless efficiency. Not a single one had escaped. Captain said, nodding in greeting, "Are you and your crew unharmed?" Could only nod, still struggling to process what had just happened. "How?" he finally managed to ask. "How did you arrive so quickly? You were so far away." His expression showed a hint of what might have been amusement. "When you activated the beacon, we were already moving in your direction. We had detected the Void Brothers' ship following you hours ago. We stayed back, hoping they would show themselves. They did exactly what we expected. You were watching us the entire time. We were protecting you the entire time. The inspection was real. The conversation we had was real. But we also knew there was a strong possibility you were being stalked. The Void brothers have a pattern. They follow merchant vessels for days before striking, learning their schedules and crew complements. We have been tracking this particular group for weeks, waiting for them to make a move. Felt a complex mixture of emotions: relief at being rescued, gratitude toward the humans who had protected him, but also something else: a deep, profound appreciation for how thoroughly the humans had controlled the situation from the very beginning. "The raiders on their ship," he said. "What will happen to them?" His expression grew serious. "They will face justice, Terran justice. Under galactic law, piracy is punishable by imprisonment, but the attack on Prime included murder of civilians, including children. For that crime, the leaders of the Void brothers will face execution." Execution. The word hung in the air between them. Many species in the galaxy had abolished capital punishment long ago. They considered it barbaric, a relic of more violent times. But humans had retained it for the most serious crimes. They believed that some actions were so terrible that the only appropriate response was permanent removal of the offender from existence. "I see," said quietly. Seemed to sense his discomfort. "Captain, I understand that our ways seem harsh to some species, but consider this. The Void brothers have operated for 2 years. In that time they have killed over 300 beings. They have destroyed families, devastated communities, and spread fear throughout this entire region of space. And in all that time, no one stopped them. No one could stop them, until today." "Because humans came," said. "Because humans came," agreed. "We are not proud of our capacity for violence, Captain. We know what we are capable of, and that knowledge keeps us humble. But we have learned over centuries of painful experience that violence cannot be ignored. It cannot be wished away. It can only be met with strength, contained with justice, and prevented through vigilance. The galaxy has enjoyed peace for a long time. We intend to help keep it that way, even if the methods seem unpleasant to our allies." A communication came through on's personal device. He listened for a moment, then turned back to. "Captain reports that the Void brothers' vessel has been secured. The raider captain has been captured alive. He will stand trial for his crimes. The stolen cargo from Prime has been recovered and will be returned to the colonists." Felt tears forming in his eyes. Did not cry often, but when they did, it was a sign of overwhelming emotion. "The children who died," he said, "their families will have some closure." Nodded solemnly. "They will, and perhaps more importantly, other children will be safe. The Void brothers' network extends across 3 sectors. With the capture of their leaders, we can dismantle their entire operation. This ends today, Captain, all of it." Over the next several hours, the Stellar Wanderer was thoroughly examined by the human technical team. The damage caused by the raider cutting tools was repaired with materials from the Iron Will. The cargo was checked and confirmed secure, and his crew were given medical examinations to ensure they had not suffered any injuries during the ordeal. Through it all, the humans treated them with respect and courtesy. They asked permission before entering private areas. They explained their actions clearly. They offered food and water and rest. These warriors from these beings capable of terrible violence showed themselves to be also capable of genuine kindness. When everything was finally complete, Captain herself came aboard the Stellar Wanderer to speak with. She was smaller than he had expected, barely reaching his shoulder even when standing straight. But there was something about her presence that filled the room. A quiet confidence, a sense of controlled power that made her seem much larger than her physical form. "Captain," she said, "I want to thank you for your cooperation today. Your decision to activate the beacon allowed us to capture the Void brothers before they could escape. Because of your bravery, many lives have been saved." Felt uncomfortable accepting praise for what had simply been a desperate act of survival. "I was afraid," he admitted. "I pressed the button because I did not know what else to do." Smiled, and for a moment she looked almost gentle. "That is what bravery is, Captain. Doing the right thing even when you are afraid. Many beings would have frozen. Many would have tried to negotiate or surrender, hoping the raiders would show mercy. You chose to trust strangers you had only just met. You believed that we would come. That takes courage." "I believed it because Commander gave me his word," said, glancing at the lieutenant commander who stood nearby. "He told me you would respond within minutes. I chose to trust that promise." Nodded. "A Terran warrior's word is sacred, Captain. It is one of the few things we hold more important than life itself. When we give our word, we keep it, no matter the cost." She reached into her uniform and a small metal pin. It was shaped like a shield, with a symbol that did not recognize etched into its surface. "This is a commendation badge," explained. "It is given to civilians who assist Terran military operations. From this day forward, you are a friend of the Terran Defense Force. If you ever need assistance, anywhere in the galaxy, show this badge to any human military vessel. They will come to your aid." Accepted the badge with trembling hands. Such an honor was beyond anything he had ever imagined. A simple merchant, a peaceful trader, now officially recognized as a friend of humanity. "I do not know what to say," he managed. "Say nothing," replied. "Live well, trade fairly, and remember this day. Remember that the galaxy is not as dark as it sometimes seems. There are beings who will fight for peace, who will protect the innocent, who will bring justice to those who deserve it. Humans are not perfect, Captain. We have made many mistakes throughout our history, but we have also learned from those mistakes. And we have learned that the greatest strength of all is standing together against the darkness." The humans departed, returning to the Iron Will and resuming their patrol of the sector. Watched their ship until it disappeared into the distance, its massive form slowly shrinking until it was just another point of light among the stars. When he finally turned away from the viewing screen, he found his entire crew standing behind him. Their faces showed a mixture of emotions he had never seen before. Relief, yes. Gratitude, certainly. But also something deeper, something that looked like wonder. "Captain," In said softly, "I think I understand now why the galaxy fears humans." Looked at the small metal badge in his hand, studying the unfamiliar symbols etched into its surface. "Fear is the wrong word," he said thoughtfully. "The galaxy should not fear humans. The innocent have nothing to fear from them. Only those who harm others, only those who choose violence and cruelty, should feel fear when humans are near." He pinned the badge to his uniform, feeling its weight against his chest. "Set course for Station 12, he ordered. "We have a delivery to make." The stellar wanderer resumed its journey, its engines humming steadily as it pushed through the void. Behind them, the sector was now secure. The Void Brothers were defeated. The trade lanes were safe once more. And somewhere out there, humans continued their endless vigil, watching, protecting, ready to bring the fury of there against anyone who threatened the peace of the galaxy. Thought about everything he had witnessed. The efficiency of the human military, the precision of their weapons, the speed of their response, but also their courtesy, their honor, their commitment to protecting those who could not protect themselves. He had always believed that peaceful species like they were the foundation of galactic civilization, that trade and cooperation and mutual benefit were the highest values, and he still believed that. But he now understood that peace needed guardians. It needed beings who were willing to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. It needed warriors who had mastered their own violence and turned it toward the service of others. Humans were those warriors, children of survivors of a planet that had tried to kill them every day of their existence. They had emerged from that crucible with something precious. They had emerged with the understanding that strength without wisdom was dangerous, but that wisdom without strength was helpless. The galaxy was fortunate to have them. And Captain, Merchant of the People, was proud to call them friends. When the stellar wanderer finally arrived at Station 12, news of the Void Brothers' defeat had already spread throughout the region. Beings from dozens of species gathered in the docking areas, eager to hear the story from someone who had witnessed it firsthand. Told them everything. He described the human warship and its terrible weapons. He described the efficiency of the boarding team. He described the capture of the raiders and the recovery of the stolen cargo. But most importantly, he described the humans themselves, their discipline, their honor, their dedication to protecting those who could not protect themselves. Many listeners struggled to reconcile his account with the stories they had heard about humans. Stories of violence and war, of weapons capable of destroying worlds, of a species that had nearly exterminated itself multiple times throughout its history. Understood their confusion. He had felt the same way before today. Humans are complicated, he explained. They contain within themselves both the capacity for terrible destruction and the capacity for remarkable compassion. They can be the most dangerous beings in the galaxy or the most reliable allies. It depends entirely on how they are treated and how their friends are treated. Harm an innocent in front of a human and you will discover why their world is called a. Treat them with respect and honor and you will find no more loyal friend. One young being in the crowd raised a question that had been asking himself ever since his encounter with the Iron Will. Do you think we should be glad that humans exist, or should we be worried? Thought carefully before answering. He remembered the sight of the human warship emerging from the darkness of space, its weapons blazing. He remembered the fear in his eyes when he realized his mistake. He remembered Commander's words about violence and justice and the cost of peace. I think, he said finally, that we should be grateful. Grateful that when the darkness comes, there are beings willing to face it. Grateful that the fury of it is directed toward protecting us rather than threatening us. And grateful that among all the wonders of this vast galaxy, there exists a species capable of being both terrifying and noble at the same time. He touched the badge on his chest, feeling its reassuring weight. Today I learned what it truly means to be from a. It does not mean being savage or cruel. It means being strong enough to survive anything, adaptable enough to overcome any challenge, and wise enough to use that strength in service of something greater than yourself. The crowd dispersed eventually, each being carrying the story with them to share with others. And as the tale spread from station to station, from system to system, from species to species, the reputation of humanity grew. They were not just the dangerous ones. They were not just the warriors. They were the protectors, the guardians, the beings who stood watch in the darkness so that others could enjoy the light. And somewhere out there, the Iron Will continued its patrol, its human crew ready to answer the next call for help, ready to remind the galaxy once again why a Class 3 vessel, crewed entirely by humans, was both the most feared and the most welcome sight in all of space.